Thank you everyone for your patience, just holding on whilst we got going. So my name's David Blocks, I'm the Marketing Manager at SoftwareONE. Thank you for joining us on the Adobe Creative Cloud Strategy webinar. We've got Charlie Weber, one of our global Adobe solution specialists, who will be driving through the main content for today. So just before we go any further, just a few sort of housekeeping rules. So we've set everyone on mute to ensure that the sound quality remains at an optimum. But what I do suggest, if you do have any questions throughout Charlie's content that he delivers, please use the chat box facility on your panel on the right hand side to send us your questions, and we'll look to answer those at the end of the session. But also there are some stopping points through Charlie's presentation which offer the opportunity to ask questions, so do feel free to send those questions through, and we'll look to answer those as we go through today's content. So I'll hand over to you, Charlie, now to go through the session.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated for everyone's time commit. My name is Charlie Weber, the Adobe Solution Specialist here at SoftwareONE. So in essence, what that means is I'm the point person for Adobe volume license changes and anything that Adobe needs to do and disperse information to all their clients. Filters through my desk. Make sure that we understand the content, understand the implications to a customer, and relay that information to our customer base. So first, just an overall agenda, and I don't want to deep dive into a lot of product, but more focus on the licensing and strategy and how to optimize the footprint. So first we'll go over just a brief Adobe licensing roadmap. Discuss the new subscription model and the contract that's associated with it, the VIP. A brief overview of the Creative Cloud products, and then the value of the transitioning over into the cloud model as a whole, the incentives that are attached to it, and then just kind of a recap of what to remember and what can we take away from the webinar and take back to your organizations as a whole. So first, just to start, very high order and very high level, what are the Adobe contracts? So the contracts that are displayed up here are the volume license contracts that are available for procuring Adobe software. You still can buy full package product, you still can buy OEM installations, but they're not volume licensed, so they don't carry with it the volume license rights, such as reassignment, reallocation, and reharvest. So in general, here are your options for perpetual licenses. You have the TLP contract. I equate it to a Microsoft Open contract, where it's a simple one and done contract. You can't repurchase, and minimal discount. From an optimization standpoint, the next contract would be the CLP, or a cumulative license program. Two-year open-ended contract. You can repurchase about a 7 to 11% discount versus the TLP contract. And basically for medium to large account customers, this has been the contract you've been associated with in the past. Next level, which is a Acrobat-only contract, is the Enterprise Agreement. Very similar to the Microsoft agreement, in that it's a 3-year agreement with locked-in price and an annual true-up. Benefit there is that the 3-year not only locks in the price, but also the volume license policy that's associated with it. So if Adobe next week says all Acrobat transactions need to be transacted with a small puppy, we have to sell you a puppy. Under the Enterprise Agreement, you lock in and grandfather the volume license policy rights. The last column is the VIP. So this is the new model for Adobe as a whole. This is the future of where Adobe contracts will go. And as you can see, just as the contract compare, it's flexible. We're going to jump into a bit more of the actual VIP contract and what are the functional aspects of the contract in just a bit, but just as a high-level overview of what we're discussing in volume license. So where is Adobe going? This is a brief roadmap of what Adobe is trying to accomplish from a contract base, and that within 18 to 24 months worldwide, every customer will have a VIP contract in place. So that means that the traditional procurement methods that you may have purchased Adobe product in the past are going to be 3 stages. The first is the de-emphasis of the product as a whole. So within marketing in Adobe, their time, devotion, and spend is spent on the Creative Cloud. They're not advertising their perpetual licenses, nor are they advertising their perpetual contracts. As well as from an internal resource perspective, Adobe's sales force is 100% driven towards the cloud solution and the VIP contract. Something to keep in mind too is that as you escalate an issue that you may have with Adobe, it depends on how you purchased it, and that's how it will be addressed. Frankly, if you have Creative Cloud, you move to the top of the queue for problem resolution. If you have a CLP contract where you're on CS6 perpetual license, your problem will be addressed, but not to the speed as the Creative Cloud products would. The next step for Adobe in this kind of transition is going to be the devalue of the contracts itself. So in the past, Adobe will have 3 or 4 incentives throughout the year. So they'll have buy 4, get the 5th free for Acrobat, 20% off certain products. They've run incentives in the past, such as you can aggregate the points that you've earned under certain contracts and apply them to a higher level contract. These will be discontinued. We actually haven't seen a perpetual license incentive this year thus far, and we don't forecast any more perpetual incentives the rest of the year. Great example of what they're going to do from kind of a last chance offer will be around the Creative Suite products. Last chance to upgrade. So right now you can upgrade a few versions back for Creative Suite, the same as Acrobat as well. But there'll be a brief period, which usually is about 6 to 8 weeks, that'll say last chance to upgrade. The last step for Adobe is going to be the discontinuation of the perpetual license contracts as they're available today. Our roadmap, our forecast for this is end of year next year, which means you have 18 months to buy as you see fit under any contract that you see fit, with the big asterisk of at the end of FY14, perpetual license contracts will go away. The only exception there is going to be the enterprise agreement. As mentioned before, you lock in the volume license policies and grandfather into the rights. So before I move on, if you have any questions, please use the chat box and let me know if you have any questions on basically the Adobe roadmap as a whole. I think the main point to be concerned with is that every customer should have a VIP contract in place. The next one, the next section, we're going to get into what the actual VIP contract is and what are the functional aspects of it, but know full well that that's Adobe's end game. They want all customers to be under this single contract, and that's how you procure software.
Okay, Charlie, it's David here. I've got one question already. So we heard that Adobe has moved to an N1 for upgrades. Can you please confirm that the upgrade path is more than one step, please?
Well, for Adobe on the Acrobat side, it's 2 full versions back, which means anything Acrobat 9 or 10 has rights to upgrade to 11 at 50 cents on the dollar. For Creative Suite, it's 1 full version So that means anything CS5 or 5.5 are eligible for upgrade. Adobe doesn't consider .5s as a full version release. So that means anything that you have CS2, 3, or 4, you have to buy net new to replace. On the Acrobat side, anything 6, 7, 8, you have to buy net new to replace as well. This time next year, Acrobat 12 will be released, at which point the same will follow suit. Then at that point, anything Acrobat 10 or 11 will have that upgrade right, so 9 will fall off.
Okay, and that's the question we've had, and a thank you for. So feel free to move on to the next section.
Okay. All right. So what is this VIP contract? So the VIP contract is an evergreen contract. You never have to renew this contract. All it functionally does is set an anniversary date. So for all the subscription products, you prorate the actual amount of months remaining to get to your anniversary date. So if today was your VIP contract start date, any seat that you add of Creative Cloud or any of the subscription products, you pay for 12 months of usage. However, 3-4 months from now, if you add, let's say, a Photoshop or a new Creative Cloud Team product, you only pay for 9 or 8 months remaining, depending on the month of actual usage. Another very good point to remember is that this is a non-transaction required contract. So if you sign your VIP now, you can wait 11 years before adding your first Adobe product into it. It doesn't time out, and actually what it does is set the proration calculator. So a good bit of advice is, if you're looking to test the product and start to look at the VIP contract as a whole and the Creative Cloud products, sign the contract now, and then if you want to test, let's say 7-8 months down the line, you only pay for a few months of usage to get to your anniversary date. Another aspect of this VIP contract is the administration portal. So on the right side of the screen, you'll see a screenshot of how you manage your licenses and your users. Now I'll get to how you actually manage users, quote unquote, in a little bit. But the point is that the administration portal as a whole is a very streamlined process and a streamlined dashboard view. Frankly, the LWS for Adobe gets confusing. There's just too many aspects of the portal as a whole that can confuse customers. How do you access your keys, your downloads, your license history, and your administration. Last point is that the VIP contract is a global agreement, meaning that you can have one parent agreement that covers an entire global footprint, regardless of country of deployment, or you can administer decentralized, meaning you can have, if you have 10 affiliates, you can have 10 different VIP contracts if that's how you want to manage product and manage users. Very last point is that because it is a subscription model, the VIP contract has no contractual obligation to continue the subscriptions year over year. If this year you decide you have 25 users on your anniversary date next year, you only need 18, you can continue with subscriptions for 18 products. So if there's no contractual obligation to what you add throughout the year to continue moving forward. All right, before I move on to generalize what the product is available, if there's any questions.
Yes, Charlie, we've had one question in. So how do you get good commercial deals, or how is discount applied if you're only buying 12 months at a time?
Sure, it's a very good question. As of right now, the Adobe VIP has no tiers. So in essence, Coca-Cola gets the exact same price as a mom-and-pop advertising agency with just one seat. From a discounting perspective, SoftwareONE, something that we do internally is that the amount of seats added can determine a better discount. So a great example in the United States, they have, if it's 5 or more seats, SoftwareONE will purchase a month free of an end user. If it's more than 20 seats, we'll buy you 2 months free. So there are incentives, but they're not advertised or marketed, especially on the Adobe site. No roadmap, something that Adobe's thinking about, because this point comes up often, is a tiered system, or the possibility of adding or buying 2 years up front instead of just a single-year subscription. But as a whole, it's such a new contract for Adobe, it's very basic right now. My inclinations are pointing towards further discounts and tiers, but nothing's officially released or even forecasted at this point.
Thank you, Charlie. That's the only question we've got for this section. Lovely.
Okay. We'll move on next to what are the products. So I don't want to get very deep in depth into what the actual products are and product functionality, but it's a very good practice to understand, well, what is available. So with the Creative Cloud products, there's 2 different families. There's the Creative Cloud Team, which is every single product in the desktop suite, including Acrobat, very similar to a master collection license. That's one possibility. And the second option, which just became available, is point products. So if you only need a Photoshop, or if you only need an InDesign, you can subscribe to just those product mix and prevent the overbuy, frankly. It's interesting how end users, of course, if offered a Ferrari, want the Ferrari. But the question remains, do they actually use all the products to justify the spend? Now, from a apples-to-apples comparison, on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see a comparison of what you get from the online services perspective. So instead of 100 gigabytes per license for the Creative Cloud Team product, you only get 20 gigabytes. Another thing that is poignant for me is the expert services, meaning that everyone who has a Creative Cloud Team license can call into Adobe and schedule a one-on-one support call. That can be break fix, functionality update, basically a call to say, what is this new product and how do I use it? That's not available for the individuals, which frankly I think doesn't necessarily limit the potential of the license as a whole, but you don't have the ability to learn new features and functions one-on-one. One thing that you'll note is not on here is the single application of Acrobat. Now, an Acrobat subscription is going to be offered in FY14, roughly about this time frame next year. So right now, the Creative Cloud and the VIP is solely focused on the Creative Cloud products and CS products, where Acrobat will follow suit next year. Now, Endgame, once again, Adobe VIP. So what Adobe's going to do is they'll keep continually filter in new products that are available under this model. So next up in line are the e-learning products. So your Captivate, your e-learning suites, Contributes. Followed suit from there is going to be Form Central, Adobe Connect, so Adobe's live meeting product. Form Central as well, which is a subscription product for form workflow optimization. All these different types of products are going to be added into that VIP contract as a whole. But as of right now, here are your product mix. Everything and all on the desktop suite in one SKU or single applications. Now, something that's very interesting around the Creative Cloud products is the services portfolio. So the way you have to think about Creative Cloud is it's not just product. It's the additional benefits that you receive with each and every license. So a great example is Device Sync. So Device Sync, it typically is understood as I move from one device to the next, my files will sync so I don't need to backtrack in my work. For a creative end user, this has been beneficial. However, in the Creative Suite products, your preferences don't follow through. So if I'm working on a file, I'm on my work laptop, and I have a video that I've been editing all day, by the end of the day, I probably have 40 to 50 to 60 different preferences and layers set within the product. When I go home, using my secondary use rights, and I open up that file, my preferences don't follow. Under the Creative Cloud model, using the cloud and the online dashboard as the catalyst, your preferences follow through. So the way to think about this is a productivity boost. As mentioned kind of on the storage side, every single end user has the availability of online storage, 100 gigabytes for the whole product or 20 gigabytes for the single application. This is offered free. You don't need to use the storage. It's not a requirement. But with the offering of the actual online storage, I think the takeaway is, what are the possible uses that you could use the storage as a whole to make your organization run better? I'll put things into context. SoftwareONE, we are currently in 63 countries and support 17 languages. We also support 2 different papers, United States Legal and European A4, which means any piece of marketing, we have 34 versions of. But kind of as we all know from marketing is that there's never one version of a document. There's 9 different slight changes on documents where we're looking to the storage as storing versions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the cloud, and then have our final version stored locally in our servers and on our desktops. So IT is looking at the storage as a possibility of deflecting a hardware refresh on our servers. Possibility. A couple other aspects is the Behance, which is basically a creative Facebook. It's a new interface that you can digitize, basically a war room for your creative end users, where instead of relying on paper and a lot of manual work, you can digitize that entire workflow process and put it onto a dashboard called Behance. Interesting aspect is the publishing. So digital publishing suite for Adobe is how you take a form, a website, and different pieces of creative and publish immediately to multiple devices. With Creative Cloud, you can host up to 5 websites and publish immediately to iPad for free. And frankly, to put it into context, DPS is roughly about a $3,000 license, and that's offered for free. Typekit, very interesting, where it's additional fonts available for typically InDesign users. It's $25,000 worth of additional fonts if you were to buy them individually, and these are all offered free. Bridge is an interesting one, where if you're a creative power user, typically you're using multiple products. Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, Premiere Pro for video, and having a single dashboard, which is what Bridge is. It's an interface between products where you can move multiple files from multiple products into a single dashboard, is only available now in the Creative Suites, the bulk products like Design Standard and Design and Web Premium, and only available in the cloud, not a standalone product. Last point is the support calls, the one-on-one half-hour calls that you gain. Each end user has 2 schedulable calls with Adobe. Now this is with Adobe product experts, not just with a help desk. Interesting way of consuming these, and I kind of equate it to the Microsoft world of the e-learning and the package service days, where instead of scheduling a one-on-one, schedule a one-to-many. So you can use one call, have your entire creative group in a boardroom or a multiple desk room, and then schedule a call. Everyone can learn at the same time. So you use those one-on-one calls to your advantage. And then really I think the whole point on the services portfolio for Adobe is pushing the speed of delivery. So as marketing agencies and advertising create new product and new ways to administer their business message out to the world, we're in a different world with mobile, with applications and galaxies and iPads. So there's different ways to receive content, receive information, and the Creative Cloud products and the online services are meant to optimize that workflow and speed of delivery. So as mentioned, I didn't go too deep into the actual product itself, but more or less an examination of more or less the benefits justifies the product. So in the Microsoft world, a license is a license, but a license with software assurance, what do you gain from that software assurance and what is my return on investment? Same process follows through with Adobe. David, any questions there?
Yes, Charlie, yeah, we've got a few questions here. So the first one, if we are 3 months away from our renewal date, can we buy Photoshop or another CC product and choose not to renew? So effectively we pay to have Photoshop for 3 months.
Absolutely. No contractual obligation to renew a subscription on your anniversary date. So if that's all you need, absolutely.
Excellent. And there's a question here. So please, can you explain the 100 gig of storage for Creative for Teams?
Sure. The 100 gigabytes of storage is built on Amazon Web Services. It's 100 gigabytes per person, where you can, instead of saving directly to your desktop, you can save to the cloud. Think more or less as a Adobe branded Dropbox. The benefit of the storage, frankly, is that for large files, if you're sending it via email, not only is it a drag on your servers, but typically there's limitations to the size of files you can send. In utilizing the cloud product, you can send the URL address of your cloud storage instead of the file itself. As a recipient of that URL, I click on that URL, I now can view the file either as a web page or I can download directly to my desktop. Even if it's viewed as a web page, you can manipulate the file and edit the file. So you can view the metadata, view all the layers and the actions that were taking place on the file itself. You can edit and modify it as long as I have product to do that. Once I'm done with the editing process, I can once again save back to the cloud, even if I'm not a Creative Cloud member, or I can send back in the traditional sense of email or internal servers.
Okay, and so there's actually an additional question about storage, which is probably along this similar line. So I have a question about storage. I attended an Adobe Creative Cloud Day in London and posed the question about business accessing work held in the cloud. This was apparently lockable by the user. Do you know if this has been unlocked so the business can access the files created?
Sure. I get this question a lot because typically you either think that the cloud storage is a good thing or frankly it's a data loss prevention issue. So with the cloud storage, from an IT perspective, they don't have the ability to turn off the storage. However, on point of deployment, you can turn off the ports. So basically, within your firewall, you can limit the access of the cloud storage as a whole. When a creative end user is off-site, though, you can't turn a port off in a Starbucks. So they will be able to access the cloud storage off-site. Adobe does not have a solution in place for turning off storage as a whole. I get this question constant. The way I kind of look at it, too, is if you can control the ports and the access to the cloud storage within your firewall, that's one thing. If your end user goes off-site to a Starbucks and uploads a file into the cloud, is that an Adobe issue, or was that a data loss prevention issue of putting a file onto a bit drive or a CD or a DV? Last aspect of the cloud storage as a whole is that the next version. So basically, the fix is roughly November, where IT will be able to turn the storage off completely.
Okay, so we've got a couple more questions, Charlie. Someone is looking at purchasing Adobe CQ5, AEM, SiteCat, and Test and Target. Are these products part of the VIP contract now, or will they be at some stage?
They're not available under the VIP contract now. They are forecasted. A lot of the CQ5 and the digital marketing cloud products are independent and typically done direct with Adobe. Not available under VIP. However, that's forecasted for FY14.
Thank you, Charlie. So we've got another question. As Adobe moves into the cloud, would sharing of high-resolution artwork be facilitated, i.e. one person in Europe wanting to transfer something in high-resolution artwork to a colleague in the US?
Sure, cloud is an excellent way to do that. There's no limitation of the file types as long as it's all dictated on size. Now keep in mind too that the baseline is 100 gigabytes. If you need more storage, let's say 500 gigabytes per person, we can facilitate that for you. But there's no limitation when it comes to sharing internationally. No limitation on file size as long as it doesn't exceed your storage space. And no problems with high resolution as a whole. So as a non-cloud member, if I open a file that has the high resolution, the only limitation that I would have is that if I try to edit or modify that file, that high resolution file, using a feature or function that's only available in the cloud. I can view the feature just like Adobe Reader can view a PDF, but I can't edit or modify it unless I have that cloud product.
Okay, and we've got another question actually. So can the storage be pooled for a business with multiple users?
I'm not sure what you mean by pooled.
I guess pooled as in P-O-O-L-E-D.
Oh,
as in, I guess, you know, brought together and shared.
Sure. This is not in the product right now for pooling the resource. There's the top-level contract for Adobe, which is basically Creative Cloud Enterprise under an enterprise term license agreement, which frankly we're not getting into within this webinar. It offers availability of partitioning and pooling, but the contract size itself in EMEA, it's 150,000 pounds over the course of 3 years. In the United States, it's 250,000 US dollars over the course of 3 years. So it's all dictated on spend. However, this has been asked a lot of Adobe. So I have a feeling that the pooling and availability of pooling the resource and dictating it, partitioning it as you see fit, is going to be released within the Creative Cloud Team product, probably within the next 18 months.
Great. And just one final question around this, around the cloud is, are you aware of a backup or restore service for files lost in the cloud?
Sure. Because it's built on Amazon Web Services, the SLAs that are dictated on for Amazon follow through to the Adobe product as well. A great place to start there if you are interested is, frankly, on adobe.com/creativecloud/FAQ. They have listed out the SLAs for data loss. It actually links directly to the Amazon Web Services homepage and speaks directly to Creative Cloud as a whole. But the standard SLAs for Amazon Web Services follows through to the Adobe Cloud product.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Charlie. You're free to move on. Cheers.
Okay. All right. right, so next we're going to talk about what is some inherent value that's within the cloud product and just the subscription model as a whole. So number one is you're always latest and greatest with software and features. So the way that Adobe is going to facilitate releases now, instead of packaging into full version releases such as a CS6 or a CS7, as soon as any of the product teams develop a new feature, it becomes immediately available to the cloud product and end users. You don't need to deploy the new features, but they're immediately available to you. I touched briefly on this earlier about how you manage licenses. The cloud products in the VIP has transitioned over to identity-based solutions. So in the past, if I bought 10 Photoshops, nothing technically stopped me from installing it 100 times. So it was always in the perpetual model a risk of over-deployment, or a great example is if you bought Acrobat Standard but then loaded Acrobat Pro into a corporate image and pushed out that product, nothing stops you. With the subscription products as a whole, instead of having a number of licenses, you have licenses that are assigned to end users. So Charlie.Weber, Chuck.Norris, George Bush, they each have a license that they can use. So if you have 10 licenses, as soon as you try to install the 11th, it immediately sparks an invoice process, which means you're 100% compliant all the time. Another aspect is just the budget. Because it's a subscription model, it's a year-over-year OpEx expense. This is a good and bad thing. For organizations that wanted to depreciate the software in their own time frame, they could sit on a product for 2 or 3 or 4 years and then determine how they wanted to upgrade, or if they ever wanted to. With the cloud products, because it's the annual subscription, you have a repeatable action item year in and year out. So not only just in the renewals, but also the next point about right sizing. So as I mentioned earlier about you're not contractually obligated to continue a subscription, but on a year in, year out basis, you can determine and kind of take a step back within the organization and say, what products does my organization need from Adobe to succeed in a business level this year? So instead of looking backwards on the needs as they come in, you look forwards to what solutions are we going to need to provide to the business this year. Is it video content? Is it heightened web experience? Using Photoshop in a different way, integrating with outside resources. So you get to right size every year, both the quantities as well as the product mix. Kind of illustrated a little bit earlier on the management ease on the new VIP portal administration site, where you are literally managing users instead of managing licenses as a whole. And the site, frankly, it's frankly the IKEA of licensing websites. Minimal, streamlined, very straightforward, a bit of heightened reporting characteristics that you can pull, as well as you can monitor of the 100 gigabytes of storage or 20 gigabytes of storage, what are they using? Do they have 70 gigs used and 30 gigs left, so on and so forth. Interesting that Adobe is moving towards a subscription model. And the first point, or the point about right-sizing each year, the only way you're going to continue a subscription is if you gain new features and you see the value in the product, which means that there's a large onus on Adobe to continue the investment towards the products, continue the mergers, acquisitions that they make on a year-in, year-out basis on web startups with very creative products. Adobe continually buying new features and functions and integrating them in. Great example is Behance. This was 3 months ago. Behance was an independent product. Now it's incorporated within Adobe and incorporated within the product as a whole. Interesting aspect about the collaboration, as kind of illustrated of how you could use the storage, where instead of sending the actual file, you can send the URL and view as web page. This also is a heightened experience for how you collaborate either inside the organization or outside. A good example, frankly, when you collaborate outside is that if you work with organizations that have the cloud product and you want to maintain a standardization across the board, you always have the availability to save down, meaning you can save down to a CS6 format. You can also install previous versions of the Creative Cloud as a whole. One aspect, you can't buy a Creative Cloud license and downgrade to a CS6 installation, but you can downgrade to a feature set that you want within the cloud product as a whole. Last point, which is interesting, and this is up for interpretation, is how you want to deploy out product. There's two functional ways that you can push out product for Creative Cloud. First one is as you list an end user, charlie.weber. It sends an invitation to Charlie. I can download my product. The problem is I'm in control of the download and I'm in control of the updates. That's one option. Option two is using the Creative Cloud Packager tool, which is an IT-related tool that IT pulls down the executable files. They push out the packages of products that they want their end users to have, and most importantly, IT is in control of the update management. So as Adobe releases new updates and patches, IT is the one who determines the time frame of when to actually send out those updates. So I think flexibility is the main point to get there on the deployment options. Questions?
Yes, Charlie. So can you repeat? Okay. Charlie, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So can you repeat the price of the EMEA Enterprise offering? I heard it was £150,000 per year for 3 years.
Yes, that's correct. In EMEA, meaning invoiced out of EMEA, it's 150,000. Actually, it might be 150,000 euro over the course of 3 years. United States, or invoice to the United States, that absolutely is 250,000 US dollars over the course of 3 years. So the way you need to think about that is, does your organization consume and spend more than 50,000 euro per year? You profile to a Creative Cloud Enterprise and the ETLA contract. In the United States, it's a bit larger, so about $83,000 USD spend per year over the course of 3 years.
Okay, Charlie. So just to confirm, so it'd be so it wouldn't be £150,000 per year. It would be £150,000 over 3 years. Over 3 years, correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
So total contract value over 3 year would be that 150 or 250,000 for the U.S.
Yeah, but we can certainly take that offline and find the exact sterling price for the enterprise agreement. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's just the enterprise term license agreement. That's not the enterprise agreement, which is an Acrobat only, and a perpetual license contract, which we briefly spoke about earlier.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Charlie.
Sure. Well, as with everything that publishers do, when you release a new product or a contract, you incent. So something that Adobe is doing is that any seats transacted under the VIP model for a Creative Cloud team or Creative Cloud single applications, any seats transacted by August 31st, you enjoy not only an introductory price, but also you lock in next year's renewal cost. This matters because the FY14 budgeted renewal cost for Creative Cloud team in United States dollars is $70 per month, or $840 per year. Where if you buy a Creative Cloud team now, heavily incented, where it's $480. So figure if you buy from now until August 31st in the United States, you enjoy a price point of $480. Where if you buy September 1st or beyond, the new price point is actually going to be $600, $840. So by buying now and using this incentive, you're actually deflecting a 57% price increase in FY14 renewal costs. All right, so promotions are promotions. I always judge them objectively, kind of look at it whether or not it's a value. If it only makes sense if you're looking to upgrade your Creative Suite footprint within the next 5 to 6 months, then I would highly look forward to what incentives are going to be out there and what the price points are. So what to remember? Number one, don't panic. The Creative Cloud is an option now, with a big asterisk of, in the future, this will be the only way to procure Adobe products. So right now, you can still buy how you traditionally bought: TLP, CLP, Enterprise Agreement, and the perpetual licenses. But in the future, VIP and the subscription models will be the only way to stay current. Number two, and this is a SoftwareONE recommendation, sign up for your VIP. There's no contractual obligation to transact. It's just as you sign up, it sets your proration calculator. So as you eventually add product or want to look at it, you don't have to pay for a full 12 months of usage. Maybe you're only 4 months until your anniversary date. Consider it a longer-term test dev. The next point, and I'm a firm believer in this, designate power users within your organization. Find out the people who use product more than 50% of their day, and find 2 or 3 individuals that would look at the product critically and make sure that the product as a whole, the online services portfolio, does it make sense? Does it make sense to look at this product long term and test the product? Keep in mind you always have a 30-day free trial with VIP, so you always can test and deploy out a product for 30 days and determine, does this product make sense? And frankly, if it doesn't, you just uninstall before that 31st day, and there's no fiscal obligation. And then next point is, with any subscription model, you have to understand the long-term cost implications of the product. So what I did here on the bottom, now these are US-based prices, but the transaction, if you transact from this date to this date, what is the actual cost obligation? Something that's interesting is the single point product price being $240 per year versus the Creative Cloud Complete product, which is $480. As soon as you have two desktop products, it's the exact same price as getting the entire suite. So the way to think about that is you're looking at Adobe product, think of it like Microsoft Office. Do you need Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Outlook, and purchase them independently? Typically more costly than buying the entire Office Pro Plus suite. Same process follows through with Adobe. And then very important, definitely keep in mind the FY14 budgeted renewal costs, not only for the Creative Cloud Complete product, but also single applications. So as you can see, next year, the break-even for when multiple point products, or if you go to the entire Creative Cloud Team Suite, is about 2.5. Keep in mind, Acrobat should always be put into that mix and understood as well. All right, I'll stop there. Any questions?
No particular questions. We've just had a couple of requests for the slides afterwards, which I'm sure, Charlie, you'll be happy, more than happy for me to circulate to the attendees.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think next steps. I reiterate, don't panic. It's an option. It's something to look at. It's not the only route to procure Adobe product. The best approach that you can take as an organization is to first understand what are your entitlements that you own now. So request a license history. You can pull licensing data from the Adobe LWS site, but frankly, it's not the best data. All it is in an Excel, and it doesn't apply volume license policies to really tell you at the end of the day, how many licenses am I entitled to run? All it takes is an email authorization to your SoftwareONE representative, and we submit that and gain a report from Adobe. This does not red flag you from the Adobe SAM team by any means. This is a volume license right that of all customers that frankly I don't think everybody takes advantage of. Next step is to look at the inventory that you have installed, so your in production licenses. Take those two bits of data, join them together, and find deltas. Are you over deployed or are you under deployed? Very important part in the license history is, here are my entitlements, but what licenses within here still have upgrade eligibility and upgrade potential? Not that you need to upgrade an existing footprint, but the next time a net new request comes in, do you have entitlements that aren't in production that you can upgrade instead of buying net new? Upgrades are always 50 cents on the dollar savings, so it's the best way to mitigate cost. Next point is to go to your creative end users and find out what they actually are using from a product's perspective. And this is answering the question is, does it make sense to buy point products, or does it make sense to buy a Creative Cloud team and the entire suite, even if not all the products are deployed out? For Adobe, traditionally, there's overspend when it comes down to point products. And typically what happens is an end user will say, I need Photoshop. And then 5 months later they say, oh, I need InDesign as well. And then 3 months later they go, I need Acrobat. Well, now you have 3 point products that are typically about $2,000 worth of product. You could have had the entire Creative Cloud team suite for $480 a year. So there's typical overspend when it comes down to point products. So definitely understand what the end user community needs and what they're going to need in the next 12 months. Last 2 points, budget accordingly, meaning understand the long-term cost implications, and then start to look at how you want to migrate over to cloud. Keep in mind you don't have to. You don't have to do this new model, but eventually this will become the only way to procure Adobe software as a whole. So start to understand and look at how you're going to consume product. And I'm going to stop there for any last questions. No matter what, as David mentioned, I'll make sure that this presentation is available for all the attendees.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. We've just got one final question that's come through before we close up today. With the enterprise license, what is the user count?
For an ETLA contract, it's built on revenue, not on seats. So if you had 150,000, you're looking at roughly, if you have 100 power users, that can profile to an ETLA, and that's not 100 point product users. This is 100 suite users. So typically the way I would look at that is if you have, I would say maybe 75 users and above, as well as a significant Acrobat footprint, those are the combinations of products that you could profile to an ETLA. No matter what, if you'd like a verification, that's what we can do for you. Basically understand your footprint and kind of escalate with the Adobe Business Desk and say, does this customer profile, would it be worthwhile to look at an enterprise term license agreement? The benefit of the ETLA in the long term is you get to negotiate price. Not only price, but also product mix. So typically, if you have that sort of investment towards Adobe, they'll make an investment towards you.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. And that's the final question. So we've taken up the full hour. So just leaves me to say thank you, Charlie, for taking us through a detailed review, I guess, of the announcements that Adobe have made, and obviously what organisations should be looking out for with regards to their sort of future decision making. And just leave me to say thank you for everyone for joining the call and your contributions today with the questions, and I hope you found the session useful. Just to reiterate, we will send round the slides afterwards, and also we have recorded today's session as well, which will be uploading to YouTube channel for future reference and for you to forward on to other colleagues. So thank you all once again, and we look forward to joining you again on future webinars.
Thank you very much. Jesus Christ.